The 7Artisans 60mm macro lens is featured in this video. I'll go over the details, show you how it works, and the kinds of images you can create with a macro lens.
Hey photographers! No sooner had I said that I didn't have an X-mount macro lens for my X-H1 than Eric at Pergear asked if he could send over a 60mm f2.8 from 7Artisans. Now, I do a lot of macro work, taking close-ups of the buttons, dials, switches, and other parts of the camera to show in my reviews. Most lenses don't focus close enough for a good close-up. The closest focus distance covers an area the size of the camera, and I want to show you just one button. So I've mostly created close-ups with a Sony E-mount 30mm lens, and the close-ups you're about to see of the 7Artisans lens are taken with that Sony lens. But after trying this one for a few days, I'll be using the 7Artisans for close-ups in my upcoming reviews. Now, the lens arrived with a Pergear cleaning cloth, a nice case. I think this is made from the same stuff that wetsuits are, and there's also an instruction manual, English on one side, and I assume that's Chinese on the other.
It is not a big lens, 10 centimeters before focusing. And when you focus, the focus barrel extends out from the body. At 550 grams, it's fairly heavy and seems to be all metal construction. Even the protruding focus barrel / flare hood. And the removable part can be submerged underwater while shooting. Interesting. The filter diameter of the lens and the focus extension barrel is 39mm. The defined travel manual focus ring rotates about 270 degrees near to far. The markings are both metric and imperial. The non-detented aperture ring ranges from f2.8 to f16. The lens has depth of field markings. Both rings turn with the right amount of tension for smooth movement and solid retention of a selected setting. The lens is fully manual. For aperture, the current reading doesn't display on screen, and focus. There's no indication on the distance ruler. And this means that the release without lens setting must be enabled for stills. And as you adjust the focus, the field of view changes. That's actually true of all lenses, but more noticeable here, the lens is not stabilized. And the closest focus distance is 26 centimeters, which means that the subject can be lit without having the lens and or the camera cast a shadow on the scene. That was a limitation I'd learned to work around with the 30mm E-mount lens, where I was often very close. At the closest focus distance, the reproduction ratio is 1:1, creating a very small focus area with a diagonal of about 2.5 centimeters.
Now, my needs for macro work are simple. I need to record video of the parts of a camera or other device that I'm reviewing. I set up a review camera on a tabletop tripod, the recording camera with the macro lens on a regular tripod. Now, for each shot, I position the review camera, adjust the lights, set the exposure and focus, and then record. If there are moves, I add them in post with the Ken Burns effect in Final Cut.
There are some lighting techniques that are useful for macro work. I generally use a single LED fixture and a white card or a reflector to bounce the light to the shadow side. I want a clear image so you can see what I'm talking about, but the setup does allow for some nice moody effects. Now, this week, I'm working on a review of a tripod, so I'm taking shots of the head, which has rotation markings, a compass, and a level. And this kind of close-up work has two issues. The first is dust and dirt. The closer you are, the more visible any kind of dust is, so I keep cleaning supplies, cloths, brushes, and compressed air handy. Even so, getting a pristine image can be difficult. The other factor is depth of field. By the time you're that close, the depth of field is very shallow and the whole object is rarely in focus. Now, that's not a problem that's easily solved in a video. In stills, the X-H1 supports focus bracketing, but of course that doesn't work with a manual focus lens unless you're prepared to take the images manually. A macro lens can also be useful for nature work, getting close-ups of small subjects and objects. It's really a chance to look at things, or to pay attention to things, that otherwise don't get observed. And it's not only useful for close-ups. This is, after all, a 60mm lens and can take pictures of just about anything. It's not bad for portraits.
Now, whether you're shooting macro images or not, remember to keep shooting until your memory card is full and your battery is empty. And if you have thoughts that you'd like to share, I do enjoy interacting with you. So post your relevant questions and civil comments below. And a big thank you to all of my subscribers. And if you're not yet a subscriber, I would be pleased if you'd join us. Thanks.